In this video, I'm going to redesign the Chevy Impala SS from 2004 into something that could be built today. I'm going to use some Nissan GTR taillights, splash them on the rear end of the SS, and kind of mold them, as always, into something that suits this design. I'm also going to remove all the early 2000s trim pieces and also work a little bit on the proportions of this thing, because it looks like an early 2000s sedan and it doesn't really have the proportions of a sedan today, meaning lower the greenhouse a little bit and adjust the ratio between the height of the doors and the height of the greenhouse to make it a little sportier. But before we jump into the redesign, let's have a look at this. This is I think this was a 7th generation Impala. Up here we have, these are the 3 trim levels you could choose from. So we have the base up here, and you have the LS down here, and then you have the sporty SS at the bottom. And you can see just how simple the base looks compared to the other two. You don't have the fog lights down here, for example. And you also don't have any sort of wing or spoiler on the trunk. But I do think this is pretty unique for the Impala of this time, to have almost like this plexiglass or whatever bar in the rear end, and behind them you have these round taillights. I think that's a feature that is really unique for this generation Impala. And you can see that in the LS we now have some really cool aluminum wheels. I think these were 17 inches, and I think these look actually better than the ones that came on the Chevy Impala SS, as you can see down here. I really like these better. I think they look sportier than the ones that we have on the SS. But the differences between the base and the LS down here, you can see we have the fog lights, for example, and there are a lot of more safety features and stuff like that that I'm going to talk about later during the redesign between these 3 trim levels. And then you have the 3.8 liter V6 putting out 200 horsepower and 225 pound-feet of torque in the SS. These two had the same engine, so you had a 3.4 liter V6 putting out 180 horsepower and 205 pound-feet of torque, and they bumped it up by 20 horsepower to put in the menacing SS. You also have a unique spoiler for the SS that kind of covers this hole that we have in the wing on the LS up here. So with that said, let's jump into the redesign. Let's see how the SS is going to turn out, turning it into a modern car. So some of the backstory of this generation Impala is the 2000 to 2005 Chevy Impala was the 7th generation of the Impala line, and it was a popular full-size sedan that offered a blend of practicality, comfort, and style. And during this period, the Impala was offered in 3 trim levels, the ones I just showed you, which were the base, the LS, and the SS. Each trim level had its own unique set of features and options, obviously. In terms of engine options, the 2000 to 2005 Impala was initially equipped with a 3.4 liter V6 that produced 180 horsepower and 205 pound-feet of torque. And later in the SS model, the 3.8 liter V6 was added to the lineup, which produced 200 horsepower and 225 pound-feet of torque. And both engines were paired to a 4-speed automatic transmission. The base Impala trim level offers standard features such as air conditioning, power windows and locks, and a tilt steering wheel. The LS trim level added features such as leather seats, a premium sound system, and alloy wheels. The top of the line SS trim level includes a more powerful engine, a sport-tuned suspension, 17-inch alloy wheels, and a host of other performance upgrades, both in the interior and the exterior. One of the defining features of the 2000 to 2005 Impala was its spacious and comfortable interior. The car offered plenty of headroom and legroom for both front and rear passengers, as well as a large trunk with 18.6 cubic feet of cargo space. The seats were comfortable and supportive, and the dashboard was laid out and easy to use. This generation Impala received high marks for its ride and handling thanks to its 4-wheel independent suspension and a power-assisted rack and pinion steering. The car was praised for its smooth and comfortable ride, as well as its stable handling at high speeds and precise steering. So let's have a look at this redesign. As always, what I want to do when I redesign cars like this is to make it unmistakably an Impala, a 7th generation Impala, but it needs to have, of course, some modern lines, and more importantly, I think, some modern proportions. And the modern lines, the proportions also should be complemented with modern graphics, such as the taillights needs to definitely be updated, but I want to keep this plexiglass black kind of Batman feel in the rear end, and also add a brand new diffuser, some new wheels, and work on the wheel wells to make them a little bigger than the original, because wheels today have gotten bigger in general, so I think having bigger wheels is definitely gonna help this design. I really think the GTR taillights, they work great on the Impala. I think that it's like it's made for this design. It feels like a proper modernized version, just adding the GTR taillights in the rear end. I'm gonna keep the trunk spoiler pretty similar to the original. I think that's a cool little detail that doesn't stick up too much, but it still tells everybody that this is an SS by having that little spoiler in the back. I'm also gonna lower it a little bit, the overall proportion, so lower the greenhouse while keeping the graphics within the greenhouse pretty much identical to the original. And I also want to raise up the doors, so we squish the windows a little bit, and that creates these modern looking proportions, in addition to lowering everything at the bottom of the car, so the diffuser, the side skirt, and the front end also needs to sit a little lower than it does on the original if you want to have this be a modern car. I think old sedans like these from the 2000s and the early 2010s, if they came back today, before we went into this over-styling era of pretty much every single brand in the automotive industry, I think bringing these type of proportions back, it would actually work pretty well if we just make some slight adjustments to the proportions, and of course doing some modernizations of the graphics as well all around the car. But the proportions are still, I think some of the proportions, most of the proportions of the sedans from the early 2000s look better than 95% of sedans today, because we don't have this 3-box shape anymore. Now everything is looking like a sportback design or a 4-door coupe style, without this trunk being clearly defined, which I prefer in sedans. I think that looks really good to have the clear 3-box design in cars. So bringing these type of cars back it's interesting to see what they could look like, just coming up with ideas like this in Photoshop and have some fun with it. I hope you enjoyed this redesign as much as I enjoyed making it, and I hope to see you in the next video. Take care.